It is the 41st millennium. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods, and master of 1,000,000 worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, for whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day, so that he may never truly die. Yet, even in his deathless state, the Emperor continues his eternal vigilance. Mighty battle fleets across the demon-infested miasma of the warp, the only route between distant stars, their way lit by the Astronomicon, the psychic manifestation of the Emperor's will. Vast armies give battle in his name on uncounted worlds. Greatest amongst his soldiers are the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, bioengineered super warriors. Their comrades in arms are Legion, the Imperial Guard, and countless planetary defense forces, the ever-vigilant Inquisition, and the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, to name only a few. But for all their multitudes, they are barely enough to hold off the ever-present threat from aliens, heretics, mutants, and worse. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim, dark future, there is only war. There is no peace amongst the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods.
Sanguinius' words carried across the kilometers of elevated war, brought to distant ears on the clicking, ticking, crackling speakers of servo skulls and Mechanicus drones. Soldiers clustered around their data slates to bear witness to the Primarch's proclamation. The hundreds of thousands of defenders of the Delphic battlement, drawn from all across the burning Imperium, listened to the words of the great angel. All of them could see him, even if they were far from his sight and forced to rely on a hololithic reflection. All of them could hear him, even if his words purred through the crackling mouth of a floating probe. Land had expected a speech, dripping with demagogic inspiration. He'd find it tawdry, but he knew most of the human defenders, many of whom responded far more positively to the Primarchs than the Mechanicus did. But that was not what he, nor any of them, received.
I do not want to be here. I do not want this present, and I want this future that follows even less. We stand against our own brothers and sisters with our backs to the Eternity Gate, and this is not a battle we can win. If you have ever wondered how you will die, now you know. If you have ever wondered where your body will lie, now you know. You will be killed on the last wall between hope and horror. Your body will lie here, unburied, staring up at a poisoned sky. Once the sanctum falls, Terra falls with it. And I tell you, we cannot hold this wall. You can see it yourselves. They are too many. We are too few. We may last a week, if we do the impossible. More likely we will all be dead in 3 days. Perhaps my words surprise you, or frighten you, but I will not lie. Not to you. Not to you who have come through 200 days of dread only to find yourselves here. I have looked into your faces and seen what this war has cost all of you. I have followed the flow of battles that each of you have survived to stand here on the final battlement. I see everything you have endured, those stories written in the light of your eyes. Now the War Master offers you a lie of life, promising a mercy his forces are incapable of showing if we abandon this last war. And it falls to me, here and now, to tell you to stand against him one more time, to give everything you have, even your lives, if it will hold this rampart for another day, another hour, another second. This is what the moment demands of me, is it not? That I beg you to make one last sacrifice.
Sanguinius swooped closer to the battlement, casting his sword to the stone. It clattered there, in a loose cluster of blood angels, none of whom made an attempt to pick it up. Lan stared at it for a long moment, then watched as the Primarch whirled in the sky to face the war once more, showing his bare hands to the gathered thousands.
No.
Sanguinius fairly breathed the word. His wings beat hard, holding him aloft. He stared into the silence that met his disavowal, and he shook his head to punctuate the syllable with adamance.
No, I will not ask it of you. You have already given everything. You have already done everything asked of you 100 times and more. You have suffered through a war of unimaginable darkness, one that has demanded more from you than any soldier in the history of our species has been forced to give. The fact you still live, that you still fight, I cannot conceive of the courage and resilience it requires for you to face this dawn and look to the horizon with a rifle in your hands.
Lan could hear army soldiers shuffling. He saw them glancing at each other. None of them spoke. All of them held rapt to the Primarch's words.
Where Horus has offered you only lies, I will offer you truth. Those of you that wish to run, run. Leave this place, not in shame at a duty undone, not in surrender to the traitor's forces, but with honor. Go with my gratitude, for you have already given everything asked of you. What right do does anyone have to demand more? From you, who have endured harrowing beyond account, horror beyond measure. If you wish to fall back into the Sanctum Imperialis and spend the last hours of life with your children, then do so. Know that you go not only with my blessing, but with my envy. If you wish to leave the wall and take your chances in the wasteland before the battle begins, then, in the Emperor's name, you have earned the right to try. Go swiftly and carry with you the pride that you have already given a hero's share in a war that none of us wanted, but were forced to fight. And if you wish for the truth, I will give it to you gladly, for you have earned that too. It shames me to admit, but I would abandon this wall if I could. The Primarch in me, the supposed demigod half of my heart, craves life with a ferocity that shames me. If I bowed to that instinct, I would take to the sky and never look back. But I cannot. I am half human, and the human in me demands that I stay. There are legends about me. I hear them whispered among you every day, that I know the moment of my own death. The stories say this gives me courage, that I feel no fear because I know I cannot yet be slain. Here is the truth of that tale. That prophesied death is coming. Today, tonight, tomorrow, I know not the when or the how, only that I feel fate's breath on the back of my neck. I do not remain here out of immortality's courage. I remain here because if I am to die, I choose this death. I choose to die with my back to the last door. I choose to give my life to buy another hour or a minute or even a single second of grace to those who cannot be here fighting with me. I choose to die here because I do not believe that I have yet given all I can. Someone must stand and fight. And if I have but one choice left, I will make it now. I will stand. I will fight. I will hold this wall knowing that the 13th Legion makes for Terra with all speed, and if they cannot bring salvation, they will bring retribution. Whether I am alone or whether 100,000 of you are by my side, when the War Master's horde descends upon this wall, they will find me waiting for them with a blade in hand, not because I can win, but because it is right. I do not know what delusion grips those out there who were once our brothers and our sisters, but I know it is right to oppose them.
Silence drifted over the Delphic battlements, but only for a moment. Sanguinius swept his arm across the wall, taking in the defenders. Thousands of hollow ghosts of his image did the very same thing.
I have spoken enough. You need hear no more of my fears and confessions. All that remains is for me to ask, will you run?
There is an ancient legend of old Earth that speaks of 3 men of Aegina who lived in a cave deep in the mountains,
said Magnus, with the warmth of a natural storyteller. Though he had heard this story before, Ahriman found himself captivated by Magnus's voice, the natural charisma that loaded every commanding word.
These men lived shut off from the light of the world, and they would have lived in permanent darkness but for a small fire that burned in a circle of stones at the heart of the cave. They ate lichen that grew on the walls and drank cold water from an underground stream. They lived, but what they had was not living. Day after day, they sat around the fire, staring into the flickering embers and dancing flames, believing that its light was all the light in the world. The shadows made shapes and patterns on the walls, and this delighted them greatly. In their own way, they were happy, moving from day to day without ever wondering what lay beyond their flickering circle of light.
Magnus paused in his recital, allowing the audience to imagine the scene and picture the dancing shadows on the cave's walls.
But one day, a mighty storm blew over the mountains. But so deep were the men that only the merest breath of it reached their cave. The fire danced in the wind, and the men laughed to see new patterns on the wall. The wind died, and they went back to contemplating the fire, much as they had always done. But one of the men got up and walked away from the fire, which surprised the other men greatly, and they bade him return to sit with them. This lone man shook his head, for he alone had a thirst to learn more of the wind. He followed it as it retreated from the cave, climbing steep cliffs, crossing chasms, and negotiating many perils, before he finally saw a faint haze of light ahead of him. He climbed out of the cave, emerging onto the side of the mountain and looked up at the blazing sun. Its light blinded him, and he fell to his knees, overcome by its beauty and warmth. He feared he had burnt out his eyes, but in a little while his vision returned, and he hesitantly looked around him. He had come out of the cave high on the mountain's flank, and the world was spread out before him in all its glory. Glittering green seas and endless fields of golden corn. He wept to see such things, distraught that he had wasted so many years in darkness, oblivious to the glory of the world around him, a world that had been there all along, but which his limited vision had denied him.
The Primarch stopped, looking up to the stars, and his rapt audience followed his gaze, as though picturing the blazing sun of his story.
"Can you imagine what it felt like?"
asked Magnus, his voice racked with emotion.
"To have spent your entire life staring at a small fire and thinking it was the only light in the world, only to be then confronted by the sun." The man knew he had to tell his friends of this miraculous discovery, and he made the journey back to the cave where the other men sat, still staring into the fire and smiling vacuously at the shadows on the wall. The man who had seen the sun looked at the place he had called home and saw it for the prison it truly was. He told the others what he had seen, but they were not interested in far-fetched tales of a burning eye in the sky. All they wanted to do was live their lives as they had always lived them. They called him mad and laughed at him, continuing to stare at the fire as it was the only reality they knew.
Ahriman had first heard this story as a Philosophus in the Corvée Temple, when Magnus had mentored him prior to facing Dominus Liminus. He heard the same note of bitterness in the Primarch's voice that he had heard then, a precisely modulated pitch that conveyed the proper measure of anguish and frustration at the blindness of the men in the cave.
How could anyone turn away from such light once they knew of its existence? The man could not understand his friend's reluctance to travel to the world above. But he resolved that he would not take their refusal to come with him as an end to the matter. He would show them the light, no matter what. And if they would not come to the light, then he would bring it to them. So, the man climbed back to the world of light and began to dig. He dug until he had widened the cave mouth. He dug for 100 years, and then 100 more, until he had dug away the top of the mountain. Then he dug downwards, a great pit in the heart of the mountain, until he broke through into the cave where his fellows sat around the fire.
Magnus fell silent, his words trailing off, though Ahriman knew it was a theatrical pause, rather than any real moment of introspection. Knowing how the story ended, Ahriman was not surprised Magnus had stopped here. In the original version of the tale, the man's friends were so terrified by what they were shown that they had killed the man and retreated deeper into the cave with their fire to live their lives in perpetual twilight. The tale was an allegorical parable on the futility of sharing fundamental truths with those too narrow perceptions of reality. By telling it selectively, Magnus had broken his covenant with the audience, but none of them would ever know. Instead, he continued his tale with fresh words, woven from his imagination.
The men were amazed at what he showed them. The light they had been missing for all their lives, and the golden joy that could be theirs were they just brave enough to take his hand and follow him. One by one, they climbed from their dark cave and saw the truth of the world around them, all its wonders and all its beauty. They looked back at the dank, lightless cave they had called home, and were horrified by how limited their understanding of the world had been. They heaped praise upon the man who had shown them the way to the light, and they honored him greatly, for the world and all its bounty was theirs to explore forevermore.
Magnus let his new ending wash over the amphitheatre and no member of the Theatrica Imperialis had given so commanding a performance. A rolling wave of applause erupted from the tiers, and Magnus smiled, the perfect blend of modesty and gratitude. Sanguinius and Fulgrim were on their feet, though Mortarion and the Death Guard remained as stoic as ever. As pitch perfect as Magnus's delivery had been, Ahriman saw that not all of the audience were won over, though it was clear the case against Magnus and the Thousand Sons was no longer as cut and dried as his accusers had hoped. Magnus raised his hands to quell the applause, as though abashed to be so acclaimed.
The man knew he had to show his friends the truth of the world around them. And just as it was his duty to save his friends from their dull, sightless existence, it is our duty to do the same for humanity. The Thousand Sons alone, of all the legions, have seen the light beyond the gates of the Empyrean. That light will free us from our shackles, of our mundane perceptions of reality, and allow the human race to stand as masters of the galaxy. Just as the men around the fire needed to be shown the glorious future that lay within their grasp, so too does humanity. The knowledge the Thousand Sons are gathering will allow everyone to know what we know, to see as we see. Humanity needs to be led upwards with small steps, with their eyes gradually opened, lest the light blind them. That is the ultimate goal of the Thousand Sons. Our future as a race is at stake. My friends, I urge you not to throw away this chance for enlightenment, for we are at a tipping point in the history of the Imperium. Think of the future, and how this moment will be judged in the millennia to come.
There is always beauty, even in the depths of ugliness, even in the depths of defeat. Your song raises us all above this realm of earthly flesh, for we are angels and warriors in equal part. Our devotion to our Emperor and our Gene Father is a paragon to which the citizens of the Imperium have long aspired. Now we stand upon the brink of death. This will not change. I say let us not go into the long silences of history, but stride forward into legend. If the Tyranids remained without guidance, we might survive here, behind the walls of the Heavenwood Redoubt. But they reorganize. The hive mind is disrupted no longer. Our librarians report the shadow falls once more. It is weak, but it grows stronger with every passing minute, coalescing around one potent nexus. If this is allowed to continue, the Tyranids will become of one mind again, and they shall attack without mercy, and we will perish here within these walls. We have no notice of the fleet. The void is awash with the energies of the warp. If we strike down their leader, we may deal the swarm one fatal death blow and save the worlds beyond Baal. In this way, we will win a victory of sorts. We will most likely die in the attempt. Millions of them remain, scant thousands of us. If we stay behind these walls, they will overwhelm the last of our defenses in a few days. This is the only way. The shadow in the warp is a many-headed monster, more ferocious than the Hydra of ancient tales, for it has 1 billion times 1 billion heads, and all must be severed before it will die. We have the blades. We have the will. Let us carve the skull of this creature. Are we not the sons of the great angel? Are we not the most blessed of all Adeptus Astartes? Our Primarch was among the first to die, but he lives eternal in all our beings. The meat and blood of our bodies are his host. For 10,000 years we have protected his legacy within the fortresses of our bodies. We are all death company now. The sarcophagi lie shattered, their occupants devoured, and our future upon Baal has died with them. The chapter is finished here, but it is not yet dead. Our bloodline may survive in the gene seed of our brothers elsewhere in the galaxy. It may not. This question of survival is no longer ours to contemplate. Divert your gaze from the future and think of the present, of now, of what we might accomplish in these next glorious hours. For if we must go into the darkness of extinction, let us do so with our swords in our hands and the wrath of Sanguinius in our grasp. When tidings of this battle reach other worlds, let them lift up their guns and say, "We shall not fall. We shall not die meekly." Through battle, we remember and honor the sons of Baal. Who will say I? Who will raise his sword with mine? Who will bring burnished steel and wrathful soul to the slaughter, and let red ruin flow? Who will die in remembering our Lord? Our flesh may be devoured, but they cannot touch our souls. We are the most blessed of the Emperor's warriors. The soul of our Lord lives in the minds and the hearts of every one of us. We, the red-clad, the blood-hungry. We, the wrathful and the pure. We, the sons of Sanguinius, the most noble and glorious of all the Primarchs. We hold more than his memory in our hearts and minds. The great angel would not lurk here waiting for his end. He would strike out, seeking to destroy the leader of his enemies as he did when he confronted his brother Horus. Such a choice is now ours, as it was our father's. If we do this, we shall all surely perish. But Baal may yet escape and play host to Space Marines still. You and I will not be among them. But the name of the Blood Angels and the score of other chapters who fought with us here will yet be known across the galaxy. For a millennium, I have worn this mask. So long that mortal humans on 1,000 worlds equate Dante with Sanguinius. One has become the other. I have no need of a mask any longer. I need not wear our Lord's face. He is in here, in my heart. I reveal my face to you. Long hidden for shame of the weakness age reveals, I shall wear this mask when I fight, in honor of our Lord. But I go into the final battle not as a poor facsimile of our father, but as Commander Louis Dante, son of Baal, son of the great angel, whose living body is the host of the Primarch. What say you, warriors of Baal? that we let slip the red thirst one final time, and fly upon the wings of wrath with our Lord unto battle. I commend you all, O ye mighty, to the protection of the great angel, for the Emperor, for Sanguinius. There is no more beauty to be had from life, so let us then seek a beautiful death.
A beautiful death for the Emperor, for Sanguinius.
Then we march, all of us who bear the blood. Chaplain Ordemail, summon the Amaraean Guard. Open the gates to the Tower of Amareo. Let the damned march with the damned.
Sons and daughters of Hive Hellsreach, look to the water from which you draw the wealth of your city, the water that now promises nothing but death. For 36 days, the people of your world, the people of your own city, have been selling their lives to defend you. For 36 nights, your own mothers and fathers, your own brothers and sisters have been fighting the enemy to ensure that half of the Hive remains in human hands. They have battled, road by road, sweating and fighting and dying so you can enjoy a handful of days of freedom. You owe them. You owe them for the sacrifices they have made so far. You owe them for the sacrifices they will make in the days and nights yet to come. Here and now, you will have the chance you deserve. The chance to repay them all. More than that, you will have the chance to punish the enemy for daring to lay siege to your city, for breaking your families apart and destroying your homes. Watch the tides. See the scrap fleet that sails into your port, bearing a horde of howling beasts. When the sun sets at the end of this week, every single invader in those surfacing ships will no longer draw breath from the sacred air of this world. They will fall because of you. You are going to save this city. Fear is natural. It is human. Feel no shame for a heart that beats too fast this moment, or fingers that tremble as you hold a weapon you have never wielded before. The only shame is cowardice, in running and leaving others to die when everything comes down to your actions. You are led by Guard veterans, the best of your Steel Legions, Imperial Stormtroopers, but they are not alone. The forces of Hellsreach are coming. Stand and defy the enemy for long enough, and you will soon see thousands of tanks constructed in this very city grinding the invaders into dust. Help is coming. Until then, stand proud. Stand resolute. Remember these words, brothers and sisters. When death comes, the good we have done will mean nothing. We are judged in life for the evil we destroy. That time of judgment is upon you. I know every man and woman here feels it in their blood, in their bones. I am Grimaldus of the Black Templars, and this is my vow to you all. While one of us stands, these docks will never fall. If I have to kill 1,000 of the enemy myself, the sun will rise once more over an unconquered city. Look for the Black Knights among you. We will be where the fighting is fiercest, at the heart of the storm. Stand with us, and we will be your salvation. Do you see that?
He asked quietly. At first, only silence followed. Hesitantly, the guard soldiers began to cast glances at each other, uncomfortable with the chaplain's presence and confused by his behavior. All eyes were on him now. Grimaldus aimed his mace out at the advancing hordes. Thousands, tens of thousands, and only the very beginning.
Do you see that?
He roared at the humans. The closest ranks flinched back from the mechanical bark that issued almost deafeningly loud from his skull helm.
Answer me!
He received several trembling nods. Grimaldus turned his back to the wasteland, already dark with the teeming, chaotic ranks of the enemy. At first, his helm emitted a low, vox-distorted chuckle. Within a few seconds, he was laughing up at the burning sky while aiming his crozier's hammer at the enemy.
Are you as insulted as I am? This is what they send against us.
He turned back to the men, the laughter fading, but amused contempt filling his voice, even through the inhumanizing vocals of his helm.
This is what they send? This rabble? We hold one of the mightiest cities on the face of the planet. The fury of its guns sends all skyborn enemies to the ground in flames. We stand united in our thousands, our weapons without number, our purity without question, and our hearts beating courage through our blood. And this is how they attack us. Brothers and sisters, a legion of beggars and alien dregs wheezes its way across the plains. Forgive me when the moment comes that they whine and weep against our walls. Forgive me that I must order you to waste ammunition upon their worthless bodies.
Grimaldus paused, lowering his weapons at last, turning his back on the invaders, as if bored by their very existence. His attention was focused entirely upon the soldiers below him.
I have heard many souls speak my name in whispers since I came to Hell's Reach. I ask you now, do you know me?
Yes.
Several voices replied, several among the hundreds.
Do you know me?
He bellowed at them over the firing of the wall's guns.
Yes!
A chorus answered now.
I am Grimaldus of the Black Templars, a brother to the Steel Legions of this defiant world.
A muted cheer greeted his words. It wasn't enough, not even close.
Never again in life will your actions carry such consequences. Never again will you serve as you serve now. No duty will matter as much, and no glory will taste as true. We are the defenders of Hell's Reach. On this day, we carve our legend in the flesh of every alien we slay. Will you stand with me?
Now the cheers came in truth. They thundered in the air around him.
Will you stand with me?
Again, a roar.
Sons and daughters of the Imperium, our blood is the blood of heroes and martyrs. The Xenos dare defile our sacred city. They dare tread the sacred soil of our world. We will throw their bodies from these walls when the final day dawns.
A wave of noise crashed against his armor as they cheered. Grimaldus raised his war maul, aiming it to the embattled heavens.
This is our city. This is our world. Say it. Say it. Cry it out so the bastards in orbit will hear our fury. Our city. Our world.
Our city. Our world.
Laughing again, Grimaldus turned to face the oncoming horde.
Run, alien dogs! Come to me! Come to us all! Come die in blood and fire!
Blood and fire!
The Recruzier cut the air with his crozius, as if ordering his men forward.
For the Templars! For the Legion! For Hell's Reach!
For Hell's Reach!
Louder!
For Hell's Reach!
They cannot hear you, brothers!
For Hell's Reach!
Hurl yourselves at these walls, inhuman filth! Die on our blades! I am Grimaldus of the Black Templars, and I will cast your carcasses from these holy walls!
Grimaldus! 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 Grimaldus!
Grimaldus nodded, still staring out over the wasteland, letting the cheers chant mix with the howling wind, knowing it would carry to the advancing enemy.
We are judged in life.
I tell them.
For the evil we destroy.
Never my words, always Mordred's. For the first time, I have an answer to them, a greater understanding. And, my mentor, you were wrong. Forgive me that it took so long to leave your shadow and realize it. Forgive me that it took the deaths of my brothers to learn the lesson. They each tried to teach me, while yet they drew breath. Astarion, Primus, Bastilan, Cador, Nero. Forgive me for living, while you all lie cold and still.
We are judged in life for the evil we destroy. It is a bleak truth that there is nothing but blood waiting for us in the spaces between the stars. But the Emperor sees all that transpires in his domain, and we are judged equally for the illumination we bring to the blackest nights. We are judged in life for those moments we spill light into the darkest reaches of his Imperium. Your world taught me this. Your world and the war that brought me here. These are your relics, the last treasures of the first men and women ever to set foot upon your world. They are the most precious treasures of your ancestors, and they are yours by right of legacy and blood. I return them to you from the edges of destruction, and I thank you. Not only for the honor of standing by the people of this city, but for the lessons I have learned. My brothers in orbit have asked me why I dragged these relics from beneath the fallen temple, but you have no need to ask, for you each already know the answer. They are yours, and no alien beast will deny the people of this world the inheritance they deserve. I dragged these relics back into the sunlight for you, to honor you, and to thank you all. And, in humility now, I return them to you.
This time, when the cheers come, they are shaped by the orator. He uses the title I swore to High Marshal Helbrecht, standing before Mordred's statue, that I would not refuse it when formally awarded to me. I am told, the High Marshal had said afterwards, that Yarrick and Korov have spoken to the Ecclesiarchy. You are being given the relics to carry Hellreach's memory, and honor with you in the Eternal Crusade.
When I return to the surface, I will offer the icons back to the people.
Mordred would not have done so, Helbrecht said, masking any emotion, any judgment from me.
I am not Mordred, and the people deserve the choice. It is for them that we wage that war, for them and their world, not purely for the holy reaping of inhuman life.
And I wonder now, as they chant my new title, what they will decide to do with the relics. Hero of Hell's Reach. The crowd cheers, as if there is only one.
It is not enough. We stand in the dust at the end of centuries of useless sin and endless failure. The Legion was poisoned, and we sacrificed an entire world to cleanse it. We failed. We are the sons of the only Primarch to hate his own Legion. There, again, we failed. We swore vengeance on the Imperium, yet we run from every battle where we don't possess overwhelming force over a crippled enemy. We fail again and again and again. Have you ever fought a battle you'd struggle to win, with no hope of running away? Have any of us? Have you ever, since the siege of Terra itself, drawn a weapon with the knowledge you might die? I will not see my life hoard away without meaning. Do you hear me? Do you understand me, Prince of Cowards? I want vengeance against a galaxy that hates us. I want Imperial worlds to cower when we draw near. I want the weeping of this Empire's souls to reach all the way to Holy Terra, and the sound of suffering will choke the corpse god on his throne of gold. I will cast a shadow across this world. I will burn every man, woman, and child, so the smoke from the funeral pyres eclipses the sun. With the dust that remains, I will take Echo of Damnation into the sacred skies above Terra and rain the ashes of 20 million mortals down onto the Emperor's palace. Then they will remember us. Then they will remember the Legion they once feared. No more running. No more running. No more raiding to survive. When we see an Imperial world, we will no longer ask if it is worth attacking for plunder. We will ask how much harm its destruction would cause the Imperium. And when the War Master calls us for the 13th Crusade, we will answer him. Night by night, we will bring this empire to its knees. I will cast aside what this legion has become and remake it into what it should be. Do I make myself clear? Do I make myself clear?
I come with an offer to you all. Lay down your arms. Renounce your false emperor. Raise your voices to the War Master and plead for your lives. And you will be spared. The Emperor is a liar. You have all been deceived. He has lived among you for thousands of years, biding his time, using your ancestors as he uses you now. The Emperor speaks of unity. The Emperor speaks of protection of the species. The Emperor speaks of the furtherance of mankind. The Emperor speaks of many things. And all he says is lies. Know this, people of Terra. He is false. The War Master, Great Horus, has seen through his deceit and commands me to relay to you the truth of the Emperor's ambition. The Emperor is a parasite. He uses your sacrifices to raise himself up in the warp. Your blood and your souls are his meat and drink. He wages a campaign to challenge the pantheon of true deities. Listen to me, misguided, abused children of Terra. Let it be known to you that the Emperor desires only apotheosis. He would become a god and supplant the gods of war, life, pleasure, and knowledge. He would transcend his plane of existence and abandon you to all the monsters he pledged to rid you from. It is he who is the traitor to the species, not Horus. Horus will save you. Look to the sky and see his fleets. Witness how many others have seen reality for what it is, unclouded by lies and wishful thinking. Know that the coming of Horus is the coming of truth. He is the chosen of the gods. The powers in the warp who have watched over humanity, to their dismay, the Emperor bared them from their worshippers. He has seen the gods' glory and serves them willingly. He does not wish to supplant them. He does not spoon-feed you peasant fantasies. He is not a lying tyrant. He, Horus Lupercal, is the savior of mankind. I am a prophet of the gods. I am Horus's servant. And I say to you, rejoice. The gods are coming here, to this world. They will bestow their power and their wisdom to any person strong enough and faithful enough to take it. Look upon me and witness one of their champions. I swear to you that they will treat mercifully those who turn their backs upon the false emperor. They will be kind to those who kneel to the righteous powers of this universe. This is my pledge. You will survive. You will prosper. you will know mastery of this realm and the glory in the next. This is their compact with me, and through me, with you. As I come to you with these joyous tidings, I must also convey a warning. If you do not embrace the true faith, if you do not acknowledge the true gods, if you do not pay obeisance to Khorne, god of war, to Nurgle, god of endless life, to Tzeentch, god of knowledge, and to Slaanesh, god of pleasure, then you will be slain by them and their servants, and your souls will be cast into the warp, there to be devoured. Only then, in the life that comes after this, as surely as night follows day, will you know the magnitude of your mistake. There you will see through the Emperor's tissues of lies and despair. In the warp, you will beg without hope for the chance to change your actions. There is but one choice. This is the end. Grovel before the gods and beg for their mercy. Now is the time. Now is the moment. The way is clear. The doors open. Turn on the slaves of the false emperor. Repent before it is too late and liberate yourselves from his tyranny.
Gods, I hated cultures. I hated the heat. I hated the dust and the thick sweat of it. Even before I knew that other worlds existed, I cursed the gods for making my home so unbearable. There's a reason why religions prosper in deserts. There's nothing else to do but ponder the misery. I used to sit in the shadow of my father's house, squatting as the air shimmered, and I'd wait for scorpions to scuttle out of the glare. I'd catch them in my bare fingers and hold them up, watching them wriggle. I'd pluck their limbs off, one by one. Sometimes I'd get stung, sometimes I wouldn't. It was a kind of game, though not a very good one. Once, a sting made me feverish for a month, leaving me boiling on my mat inside with visions and shaking. I might have died. I didn't care much either way. Once I'd recovered, I was sitting right back out in the porch, waiting for the next one to scamper into range. Ever since then, I've played the same game. Get close to the danger. See how long you can last before it bites you. It doesn't matter which town that was. I can barely remember it myself. They were all the same. Thick with filth and haze and the stink of perspiration and refuse. My parents were exasperated with me. They wanted me to learn a trade, get ahead, find something useful to do. I didn't want any of that. I wanted to be rich without trying. I wanted to have slaves and concubines. I wanted to play my scorpion game with people. For a long time, it wasn't clear how I would be able to achieve that, but fate had a way of leading me into opportunity. I'd noticed, being an observant sort, that the Covenant had become the kind of organization that I might do well in. It is fashionable now, among those who still pretend to keep records and tell histories, to think of the Covenant as some wellspring of piety, the precursor to the fundamental religion that came later. Perhaps it was, in some places. Maybe in Varadesh they did things properly. Out in the provinces, though, the priests had begun to develop a reputation. They drank. They gambled. They were violent, and they used that violence to gather up riches. Even the devout knew that the tithes they paid didn't all end up embellishing temples. The whole edifice was like a spoiled aquifer. with a cold and oily heart locked away from those searching for the light of the sun. So you can understand the attraction. I could see myself in those robes, with a palace of my own, where a fountain would tinkle in the courtyard and a chamber full of young things would lounge around in silks and count my coins. There was a young man in my settlement, a pious one, who had inked some words of the holy books onto his face and shaven head. Every day, before dawn, he would apply more henna, rewriting the sacred glyphs with only the aid of a polished silver bowl for reflection. For this he was considered something of an inspiration in our fly-blown township. Even my own mother, fat and lazy slattern if ever there was one, noticed his diligence. "Why can't you be more like him?" she would complain, picking at her fingernails and watching me sitting idly in the porch. "Why can't you be more like Erebus?" Now, you see, thoughts like this have a terrible power. I took her words to heart. I pondered them. And I thought to myself, why can't I be more like Erebus? I was thinking the same thing as I garroted that young man. I might have even said the words out loud as I twisted the string and watched his eyes bulge and pop. It was the first time I killed a living soul. And God, was it sweet. My heart was pumping, my face was glowing. The more his life ebbed away, the more I felt my own burgeoning. By the time I let his body drop into the alleyway, I was positively singing inside. The sensation didn't last long. There was all the tedious business of disposing of the body, then rooting through his belongings to get what I needed, and turning my back on my birthplace and setting out into the great dust. I couldn't stay in a place where he and I were both known. I never once regretted it. I walked out under the southern gate, with the stars rising and the heat of the day ebbing, wearing a dead man's robes, and with a dead man's script inked neatly on my own shaven head. There you go. There is the irony. The marks on my flesh, the ones that mark me out as me, were never really mine. I wore them after that to ensure my stolen name and persona were never questioned. In time, I half forgot their origins. I began to care more about what I was writing. By the time I reached for the tattooist's needle, the words had changed, and the act was more than one of disguise. Originally, though, it was all just lies. So what was my original name? Just like the name of the place where I was born, that genuinely doesn't matter. I have become like a demon, nurturing a secret moniker that only the Empyrean echoes. I certainly will not tell you. Some things even the gods don't know. There you go. There is the irony. The marks on my flesh, the ones that mark me out as me, were never really mine.